Hello, I'm Alex. Welcome to Case Brief brought to you by the Missouri Sheriff's Association. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that this information is for training purposes only and in no way is to be considered legal advice. Today's brief is a little longer than normal and covers an Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals case dealing with deliberate indifference and the death of an inmate from a drug overdose while detained in a county jail. So, please hang in there with us as we discuss the facts of the case. Joshua Vogt died of a drug overdose while detained in the Crow Wing County Jail. His daughter, Molly Vogt, sued claiming that 3 officers deliberately disregarded his medical condition. The district court upheld summary judgment in favor of the defendants, concluding that they were not deliberately indifferent. Vogt was arrested on January 2, 2020. According to the arresting officer's report, Vogt behaved normally through the entire stop and did not appear to be under the influence. Arriving at the Crow Wing County Jail around midnight, Vogt was strip-searched. No drugs were found. Officers stated he was cooperative and responsive. At some point before the search, Vogt had swallowed 2 bags of methamphetamine. At 12:21 a.m., Officer Raynor Bloom began booking Vogt. Observing him sweating, fidgeting, and shaking, Bloom repeatedly asked if he was on drugs. Vogt denied being on drugs, explaining the symptoms as part of an anxiety episode. At 12:34 a.m., Vogt stumbled and about 10 minutes later, required assistance moving to his individual holding cell. Vogt never asked for medical attention. Since Bloom believed that Vogt was on drugs, he reported the behavior to Sergeant Ronald Imgren. Imgren talked with Vogt, who denied he was on drugs, again blaming a panic attack. Imgren performed breathing exercises with him to help him calm down. The officers testified that once Vogt was in his holding cell at 12:46 a.m., they performed no fewer than 8 wellness checks. At 1:29 a.m., Imgren saw Vogt raising his hand. Finding him on his back shaking, the officers ordered an ambulance. Within minutes, Vogt was no longer breathing. Officers conducted CPR. Vogt was pronounced dead at 2:20 a.m. To establish a 1983 medical indifference claim, the plaintiff must show that officers acted with deliberate indifference to a pretrial detainee's objectively serious medical needs. To succeed on this kind of claim, a plaintiff must demonstrate that a pretrial detainee had an objectively serious medical need that the defendants knew of and yet deliberately disregarded. A medical need is objectively serious if it has been diagnosed by a physician as requiring treatment or if it is so obvious that even a layperson would easily recognize the necessity for a doctor's attention. In order to demonstrate that a defendant actually knew of, but deliberately disregarded, a serious medical need, the plaintiff must establish a mental state akin to criminal recklessness, disregarding a known risk to the detainee's health. When evaluating whether an officer deliberately disregarded a risk, courts consider the officer's actions in light of the information he possessed at the time, the practical limitations of his position, and alternative courses of action that would have been apparent to an official in that position. Here, throughout his detention, individual officers repeatedly checked on Vogt, questioned him about his condition, to which he replied he was having an anxiety attack. They moved him to a private holding cell, reported his behavior to superiors, performed exercises with him to calm him down, and called for emergency medical help when his condition worsened. Based on the officer's conduct throughout the detention, the information would not permit a reasonable jury to conclude that the officer's conduct reached the onerous standard of deliberate indifference. The district court properly granted summary judgment to the officers.